A people and their bamboo flutes and drums, unique to our islands of the rising sun. Bougainville, Ples Plong Sankamak. The performances were part of the successful conduct of the 1995 Buka Show. For a people that were hostage under the grip of terror and bondage, the degree of unity, the life and creativity seen here was a statement in itself. They reflect the courageous effort by the people and their leaders to embrace peace and order at the crack in the rebellion on the island. We remember Bougainville for the crisis, but remember little of the shape and form it was before the fact. Bougainville, renamed to North Solomons, is located on the easternmost border of Papua New Guinea. Recent discoveries indicate that people lived on Buka for at least 28,000 years. The economy was built on copra, when German traders began buying copra from the local people in the late 1800s. But cocoa overtook copra, and by independence, Bougainville was our most productive economy, the leader in cocoa production, and second in copra. The province has two adjoining main islands, Bougainville and Buka, and 166 smaller islands. Island groups are Nuguria, Nissen, Carteret, Motlok, and Tasman. The main island has high peaks and mountainous terrain, covered in rainforest and grassland in some areas. Land area makes 9,300 square kilometers and is of volcanic origin. There are dormant volcanoes, but Mount Bagana is active and frequently erupts. The Emperor, Crown Prince, and Juro ranges form a central mountain spine, and there are 66 recorded lakes. The coastline is 685 kilometers, and large swamps dominate the west coast. Population is estimated at 187,000. In 1980, North Solomons had the second highest growth rate of 4.2%. The rapid population growth was due to improved health services. Centralized village settings are common, and some people have second houses near their crops. Sweet potatoes, yams, and taro were the staple, and introduced foods were grown. Fishing was a way of life, and the young people loved sports, especially soccer for men and volleyball amongst women. North Solomons was our most productive economy and had the most effective government and education systems before the crisis in 1989. And the Panguna mine was the world's largest open-cut mine, 2 kilometers wide and half a kilometer deep. It was Papua New Guinea's pot of gold, our first resource project that contributed 20% to the national purse. Direct beneficiaries were Panguna landowners, and the North Solomons provincial government received a big slice in its local economy. The Bougainville copper mine went into operation when Papua New Guinea was under Australian government rule. Today, it is the subject of a lawsuit in the United States. North Solomons was known for movements to break away from Australian control in the 1960s and early 70s. These came to a head in disputes over land for the Panguna mine and the harbour at Loloho. People wanted a share in the profits of the mine, and a compromise deal enabled the project to go ahead. Between 1972 and 1999, the Panguna mine contributed close to 1 billion kina in taxes and dividends to the national government. However, Panguna landowners remained unhappy about environmental disruptions and their relative small share of benefits. In monetary terms, this added up to 23 million kina.
Before reaching the final layers of overburden, they cleared 550 acres of jungle and sluiced away the unconsolidated volcanic rock and ash. Now, with this first load of ore,
Panguna mine signaled Papua New Guinea's resource boom, with Bougainville copper going into full swing in 1972, accounting for 20% of Papua New Guinea's total revenue. Panguna landowners were immediate beneficiaries in terms of material and financial gains. The people and the government of the province also shared in the blessing. First television pictures to come out of Bougainville in 1988 showed the sad tale of a peaceful land suddenly engulfed in flames and smoke, and a state of emergency which gave the national government wide powers to put down the unrest triggered by a spate of bitter action by the Panguna landowners against the government. They were in direct retaliation to inaction by the national government for better protection of the environment against the spills of the mine, huge back payments of profits from the mine, and a massive 10 billion kina compensation demand. Seen as deliberate acts of sabotaging mine operations and the economy, the government of then Prime Minister Rabin Amaliu sent in security forces to guard mine installations. Joseph Kabwe was Premier of North Solomons at the time. He soon realized he was caught between two forces, the lawful authority of the government and the increasing resentment and jungle authority of the BRA. From the start of the conflict, the man who rose to the top command of the Panguna landowner struggle, Francis Ona, never reappeared again in public after he quit the employ of the Bougainville Copper Limited, first as an engineer, then as operator of the 70-ton dump truck. The other man who became the leading military figure in the struggle was Sam Kawana. With distinguished Australian military training and a growing sympathy for his people, he quit the PNG Defence Force and disappeared into the hills. He assembled an illegal military outfit and called it the Bougainville Revolutionary Army, the BRA. He masterminded the downing of the power pylons. He single-handedly took on the might of the security forces with the keen following and support of the young people. For obvious reasons such as inferior weapons and the lack of logistical support, Kawana ruled out open warfare. He led the troops to face him and his army in their own backyard, in the jungles. In the hope of winning political support, the government withdrew the security forces in May 1989. When communication between Waigani and Panguna failed to find a peaceful solution, the government imposed a total economic blockade around Bougainville. In August 1990, security forces returned to Bougainville. In January the following year, founding Prime Minister Sir Michael Somare led a delegation from Port Moresby onto the waters of Kieta aboard the New Zealand naval ship Endeavour. Joseph Kabwe led the team from the BRA and the political arm, the Bougainville Interim Government, that meeting at the Endeavour Accord. Pius Wingti was installed as Prime Minister after the 1992 elections on a platform of solving Bougainville. His solution was simply to send back troops onto Bougainville and restore government control, as well demanded the unconditional surrender of the BRA. Sir Julius Chan went to the Honiara peace talks in 1994, 3 days after he was voted as Prime Minister. The BRA commander Sem Kaona and his wife Josie made it to Honiara, dodging security forces through swamps and unfriendly territory. The Honiara Accord was signed at that meeting. Under Sir Julius, Papua New Guinea took the biggest step, the engagement of a Pacific peacekeeping force in Arawa to secure a neutral ground for the government and the people to come together. But the leadership of the BRA did not come to the party. The BRA and the political arm stuck to their extreme agenda for political independence for Bougainville. Over the long struggle, the BRA was able to improve its inventory of military hardware, taking from fallen security force members and uncanny resistance fighters walking away with weapons from their unsuspecting soldiers. Behind the BRA lines, young men learned quickly the art of jungle warfare, the homemade guns and traditional fighting weapons, now replaced with factory-made hardware. In September 1996, 11 members of the security forces were killed in a BRA ambush at Kango Beach in South Bougainville. 5 were taken alive. In that incident alone, the BRA helped themselves to 36 military weapons, which they boldly displayed during the first peace mission to Lagwai near Buin in December 1996. Sir Michael led the delegation of parliamentarians. They pleaded for the safe release of the captives. The team returned in mid-January 1997 with the inclusion of a government minister at the time, Peter Bata, and this time security force representatives, a meeting which laid concrete foundations for the Burnham talks in New Zealand. Shortly after Burnham won, the happy ending for the 5 prisoners released at Moila Beach to the New Zealand warship Canterbury. Initially, the military was deployed to provide reinforcement to the civil power, the police, to restore peace and normalcy. Restoration and reconstruction is the catchword of the people of the North Solomons. The government led the way by opening up safe zones around the province and set up care centers for people to seek help and redress for their sufferings. At the peak, as many as 60,000 people, a third of the population, lived in care centers. Many different groups, non-government organizations, the churches, even foreign governments had joined in the humanitarian drive to offer relief to the women and children and the elderly. It is estimated that over 12,000 people were killed in the crisis, but many more perished from sickness and the lack of food and medicine. Although the leaders were in conflict with the government, the people worked hard at piecing their lives together again. Interim authorities were established, and law and order, health, and other social functions were also set in. By 1994, 85 community schools and 6 high schools had been reopened. Buka town experienced the biggest growth. New businesses started, reopening of the banks, and people were encouraged to produce cocoa and copra with the opening of market facilities in Buka and Kieta. The annual Buka show was the most outward evidence of the people's desire to start a new Bougainville with what they have. In the meantime, talks continue to find a lasting settlement for political status for the province. The governor of North Solomons, John Momis, is back on Bougainville after the most recent peace talks held in Rabaul. Finding a path to peace has been his only agenda over the last 12 years.
This concept of independence is a transitional, thing. Independence is only good for us as a stepping stone for interdependence. That is why you need reconciliation. We are interdependent. We must work together. But you can't be interdependent unless you are independent. Dependent people can't be interdependent. And that is why the fight in Bougainville is not for independence. It's really fight against alienation, against disempowerment. It's fighting for autonomy.
Among the people themselves, reconciliation is the most important phase of the peace process. It will be a continuing process to get the people to get together in the Melanesian way and renew friendship and common goals.
Bougainvilleans really need to be reconciled with one another, with Papua New Guineans, in order to liberate themselves from attitudes of greed, attitudes of hatred, attitudes of arrogance, and so on and so forth. We need to liberate ourselves.
It was a tremendous hurt in their hearts over lost loved ones, the traumatic experiences that families underwent and were left to face, the killing of innocent men, women, and children, and the fact that people are no longer listening to their cries for help and for peace that got this group of women to come together and create an awareness march at last year's Buka show.
Women of Bougainville, their point had been well taken. They proved to the whole country that as equals, women have an important role to play in development, in good and bad times. As a nation, we could not resolve Bougainville by human might, but by the power of Almighty God.
That's all Jeremiah, walk belong him. Long talk him all lead all time. You pla find him out. One him like belong God. Now you pla behind him this pla like belong God. And strong pla talk belong Jeremiah. Go long all leader belong time belong him. That this pla talk he can go along you me too.